Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
We are now, I love authors, and we have a great author here that we're going to be talking. We're on Facebook Live. We're also in the studio, and we will be recording this show so it can be heard another time. And we're talking with our author, Joe Berardino, and the name of the book is Death in the Midnight Sky, Fighting the Mighty Gunship in Combat, a memoir. So I want to ask you a few questions about that. I probably did before, but it's all new. So, Joe, before you wrote this memoir, how long did it take you to think that you were going to do this? Was this just a pop in your head, or said you've thought about it a long time?
No, I thought about it a long time, but I stayed in the military for another 30 years, so I didn't have a chance. But when I retired, I knew that I wanted to talk about coming of age in the military and also of some people I knew and of some missions they had flown. And I wanted to make sure that I highlighted this one particular friend, Ron, his life and what he had done and how he had helped me.
And when you were younger, did you think you were going to go into the military and remain there as you did up until,
Well, no, I always had a great love of airplanes. And so my father had been in the Army Air Corps during the Second World War. So I always wanted to, but I never thought it was possible. I wanted to go to school and be a gymnast and all kinds of other things like you do as a child. But when I was 17, my mother signed for me to join the Air Force. And so I went off and never changed jobs for 34 years.
And, of course, you have so many stories. I was just saying, of course, you wrote a book already. And I know you have a lot of other books in your head, because once you're a writer, that's like just the tease, I think, of starting, isn't it? And
yeah, I think so. I think that once you get I wanted to write anyway. I've always wanted to. But as I get older, I keep thinking I need to do things that are intellectually challenging and to keep my mind awake. And so my wife and I've only been married a few years to Lucille Giacone Klein Berardino. She's a therapist in West Palm Beach. And she and I talk about it, that it's important that we keep our mental faculties alive and we push ourselves to do more and better things than we have before. So writing is a big chunk of that for me.
Right. And it's very important that you share all the great opportunities and experiences that you've had, because unfortunately too many kids are now so involved with the Internet and so involved with these wild movies, and they need to hear it from the real people. And the way you can do that would be in books.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, there's thousands of studies that show that people who read more are more intellectually alert and more intellectually awake, and it's better for them, and it wakes your mind up and keeps you going in life and leads to a better life. That sitting in front of a TV screen is just, or a game screen is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, true. But the other possibility, I think, is that it has encouraged you about who you are and what your life really was. A lot of times you only remember in little spots and spaces, but when you have to write a book, you really have to get it all together. And don't you, like at the very end, say, wow, I really did a lot of things?
I don't know. To me, it's about the next thing. I don't really look back and say, boy, I was wonderful then. I kind of look forward. And I think most writers do. That's always the next project. I took a class from Dennis Lehane, the guy who wrote Shutter Island and a couple of other very famous books. And it was always about the next book. They never had time to worry about the last one or anything else. It was always what's going to be next and how I'm going to improve, how I'll get better. And I think that's a positive way to look at the world, and I think it's good for us.
It's called self-esteem.
Yeah, I guess so. You're exactly right.
And, of course, your wife now being in that field of therapy, she certainly understands that a lot. But it's now wonderful that people can actually self-publish. For years, if you didn't have an agent and you didn't go to one of the very big publishing houses, they just sat in manuscript form waiting. But now so many great books have come out because people care enough and they publish it themselves.
Well, and now we don't even call it that. We call it independent publishing now. It's not self-publishing. It's not. It used to be the vanity press and and all those things. No, it's independent publishers. instead of worrying about all those other things. Hemingway, had 21 turndowns from publishers for The Old Man and the Sea. Come on. If Hemingway can't get published, how the hell is any normal person?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so unless you know somebody or you're, the guy who wrote Kunta Kinte, I can't think of his name.
No, I don't.
A very famous book, Roots. He had 500 letters of turndown. So he
actually wrote 500 letters?
He threw out 500 query letters and had 500 refusals till he finally got somebody to do it. And it ended up being a brilliantly successful book and movie and everything else. So that old system is just not working very well. The Internet has taken over. Almost everything that has the word an agent is being taken over by the Internet. There's hardly any more real estate agents. There's hardly any more travel agents. Agency is no longer. People are doing it themselves, and they're going directly to their clients, and that's the modern way of doing it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So the big thing, though, with writing a book, though, is it does take not only a good mind and a way to organize your thoughts, but also, I believe, it does take tremendous motivation. It's not easy to write a book. You have a lot of things going on in your mind, and how do you get them to be interesting, even though your book is, I would say, it's not fiction, it's real, but a lot of this, you made it into something that someone would enjoy reading.
So I've taken lots and lots of classes and studied from lots and lots of very important people. James W. Hall, the guy who ran FAU's writing department for many years. As a matter of fact, I just went to see Erica Jong last week. Remember, she wrote Fear of Flying many years ago. Well, these people give you interesting ways of learning about writing, and they say always start with a theme, understand what your book is about, and then understand your character and develop a character arc, and then outline it. And the basic rule, I guess, comes from Mark Twain: put your ass in the seat and write.
I didn't know he said that.
Yeah, that's rule one. Well, he said a couple things. One is there's only one rule to writing, and nobody remembers what it is. And the first thing to do is put your ass in the seat and write every day. And when you get done, there'll be something there. So I think he's right.
I think you just help people listening, because people do have a lot of things that they want to write about, but they're afraid. They don't know what to do. And what you just said is just start writing.
Absolutely. Just write. And all of the fine writers say the same thing, that, doesn't matter. You're going to throw away some of your writing, then it doesn't matter. As long as you're down there writing, you're using your brain productively, and you're doing something that's going to help people.
Well, I'm looking at your book now, and it's so well done. When I first picked it up, and I was so excited about having you work, having it in our magazine. He is actually Book of the Month for our past magazine, which was February. And we are now working on our March one, but you'll see the cover in the February issue, and you read the review. And so let's just talk a little bit about, if you had to write the book over again, what would you have left out and what would you have included?
Okay, so it's a memoir, so 99% of it is as true as I can make it. and the great memoirist of this time is a woman named Mary Carr. And Mary Carr says, the thing you have to include is the thing you don't want to tell anybody. The deepest, darkest, most hidden secret you have to reveal to everyone in the world.
Really?
And so, yeah. And you have to go. And she has 3 memoirs, Cherry, Lit, and the Texas Liars Club. And she's brilliant. If you ever get a chance to read her stuff, you ought to. She was just here in the Miami Book Fair, too, by the way. And I think I like it pretty much the way it is. I don't think I would have people in my family want me to leave out certain opinions I had about certain people. But they're the truth, and they're what I think, and they're what I thought at the time, and they're what I believed. And to the degree that you can, you should write the truth.
It's funny you should say that, because my husband has written books, but he did write an autobiography. And in it was from when he first was a little boy all the way through his couple of wives and then me, and go on. And his daughter got to read part of it. She read the whole thing. She did not like the way he talked about her mother. And the kinds of things he did, she said, why did you put that in there? And he said, because it was the truth. That's how I felt.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the beauty of memoir. It's not a novel. It's the truth as you see it and as you saw it at the time and as the honesty as you can tell it.
That's true. So this actually, you call it a memoir, and I see that. But I think it's more than a memoir. I think it really is. I think of a memoir being a lot more just personal. I think you put a lot of things in here which would make an adventure book.
Well, it's really, if you're going to categorize it, it's really a coming-of-age book, they call it. That genre now is called coming-of-age. It's a young man, generally a young man, finds himself in these circumstances, and he learns and he grows and he becomes better and smarter and grows up to be a full human being. And in this case, it was when I was very young. I went to Vietnam, and it was a lark. I was just doing what I thought I should do, you know. And I met a guy who had a much bigger image and a much bigger view of the world than I did. His view was that we should go to school, we should become educated, we should become better, we should try to help the country, we should help the world. And so he convinced me of that, and he started me going to night school, he started me going to college, he pushed me to do that. And then I started doing that, and eventually I applied. There's an Air Force scholarship program. I applied for an Air Force scholarship, and the Air Force sent me to college.
So you see, writing this book was very beneficial for you, besides for the reader.
Absolutely, and it was a chance, you know. And the Military Writers of America started because they thought writers needed a chance to talk about things they couldn't talk about very well. That we as human beings don't speak very well about certain things in our mind that are very difficult to talk about. But if we write them, it seems like it can relieve the pain and relieve some of the injury and the hurt, you know, PTSD or whatever it is, that if you write it all down and you get it out, you can clean your mind of all those bad things you wanted to get rid of.
That's interesting. You should say that. Let me just tell everybody again, you're listening. Our guest is Ben Berardino, and he is a wonderful author. He's our book of the month for Boomer Times. It's called Death in the Midnight Sky.
Flying the Mighty Gunship in Combat.
Right. Flying the Mighty Gunship. Flying the Mighty Gunship in
Combat.
You know, it's funny. Sometimes it's a little bit close there, so I shouldn't do that. I mean, I should use my books. I guess I should put my glasses on. That would have helped. But let's just do that again. Death in the Midnight Sky, Flying. Why did I do that, fighting? Let me see, because he put fighting. That's why.
Okay, it's Flying the Mighty Gunship in Combat.
He wrote Fighting.
By Joe Berardino.
Right, Fighting the Mighty Gunship. That's right. That's what happened to me. It's flying. My script is not right. So Flying the Mighty Gunship in Combat, a memoir. What I was going to say was, let's see, I lost it with all that stuff going on. I wanted to just tell you that there are a lot of people now who have become authors. And their family did not know any of the things that they put in to their books. And just as you said, now they're a book, it's a memoir, whether you call it a memoir or a book, a lot of people just put different characters in, which really are really the characters, and they don't call it a memoir. But
sure.
you didn't do that. And it's really what it is, it's historical for them. It's like as though they were just filling out their life. A lot of people don't want to just read about a person's life. I did this, I did that. It has to be.
That's why that's the difference between a biography and a memoir. The old-fashioned biography on Wednesday the 12th, Martin Luther King was born, and blah blah blah. Those are boring and written in kind of an academic style that is not fun to read.
That's
right.
A good
memoir is written like a novel. It has character arc, it has themes, it has inspirational moments. And it makes you laugh and it makes you cry. I gave a copy to a girl at Quantico last week, Quantico, Virginia. I was at the Marine Corps base. I just gave her a copy. The next day she said to me, "Oh, sir, that was bad. You made me cry." I said, "No, that's good. That's the best words an author can hear is if it moved you. If it moves you emotionally, then I did it right." You know?
So what made her cry? Did she tell you?
Yeah, it was about when my friend died.
Yes.
He got killed.
That also
I
made me very sad when I read that,
was in an
too.
airplane next to him when he got shot down, and it made me cry, of course, and still. As a matter of fact, and I had a funny thing. I'm writing another book with my son, and I told him last week, I wrote this chapter about a dog, and I said to him, nothing in this chapter is true. I made every single word up. Every single thing is out of my mind, and I cried when I was done with it. How is that humanly possible?
Funny.
You know, I'm crying and I'm writing it. I'm going, that's not possible. But that's how books can they certainly emotionally move me, and I think most people, if you read it carefully and you think about it, it moves you dramatically.
Yeah, that's true. It's in your.
And that's the beauty of it. That's why it stimulates so many different parts of the mind. It's just amazing.
Well, I also wondered how many books started out as just books and became now plays and then movies. Is there some sort of statistics on that?
I don't know of any. I'll tell you what. I just saw, because of the Oscars the other night, I went to see The Shape of Water.
I saw it too.
And that guy,
wow.
What a writer. You know, he wrote it. The director produced it, wrote it. Guillermo del Toro?
He was right? An Italian who I think. I
thought he said Mexico.
It was Mexican, right?
Okay,
right.
But what brilliant writing! Here he's got. That shows how good writing is. I'm sitting there crying over a woman falling in love and having sex with a lizard. How stupid is that? Right. But on the other hand, if he does it right, he emotionally moves me and he impacts me, and he did a brilliant job of it. I thought he was wonderful.
I saw the movie the night before because I had heard it's going to probably be, one of the winners. And I liked it. My friend did not. She said, I didn't particularly like that.
Right.
I said, well, you have to look deep into that because you have to see.
You have to look at the themes. You have to. That's exactly what you do when you write a book. You have to understand the themes and what it's about. If you just take the story and don't look deeply into it, it's a story of a girl with a lizard. It's kind of goofy. But if you look into themes about a lonely woman finds love somewhere, if it's about finding love, it's about overcoming loneliness, it's about overcoming all kinds of racism and sexism and all the other different isms of the 1950s.
Try to mute someone.
Yeah.
And,
alone. And the point of her being mute is she's in a world all by herself. Nobody can hear her.
Yes.
Nobody can feel her. Nobody can sense her voice.
But this creature, that's a good word. This creature could.
Yeah.
I mean, it was splendid. I was just thrilled
to death. The writing is just spectacular.
Yeah, it really was. So when you think of did it start? I didn't know that. Did it start as a book or just went right into a movie?
I suspect he did a screenplay because he's been a director for many years. They do screenplays most of the time. But if you write a book, I had a couple of people ask me about it. The generally that's done by people in Hollywood. All of the book world is in New York, but the screenplay world is in Hollywood. So there are about 20 different screenwriters there who will take your book and do a screen adaptation for you.
Oh, so it's a screen adaptation.
Right.
Yeah.
And they write a screenplay. But it's 99% of it is the dialogue and some of the other parts, but it's mostly dialogue. And I think and they have a limit. There's like 77 pages. It's some strange. That's what a screenplay is. That's what a movie is.
Is that right?
They have a limitation. I forget what maybe it was 129. Anyway, that's a certain number because I looked into doing a screenplay. A friend of mine's doing one now. And
I think you have the mind for it. I think you ought to do that. I think you should keep encouraging yourself.
Well, I'm going to think about it, but I like novels too much. I like the idea of writing a novel, and I understand it better. The format of the screenplay is different. It's a friend of mine just took a class. He went to NYU, and took the classes there in screenwriting. So I would have to do that. I'd have to go take the classes and understand them better.
If you're enjoying writing the books, then you don't have to do that.
I'm with you.
That's maybe something that someone has the power, passion for it. And if you don't have that, just because it's there, I don't think that that's necessary. Because I could see any book that you write, it doesn't have to be a memoir. I think you could write anything. It's just because as you said, you made up the story about a dog.
Right. Well, the writing, so writing is the craft. The artistry is the story. The storytelling is the artistry, and writing is the craft. So you take writing classes at every single school in the country, and you can learn how to write, and you can write competently. The storytelling, though, that's the really artistic part. That's where this Guillermo del Toro is astounding. When you look at his story, you go, oh my God, it knocks me out. It's just incredible to tell a story that well.
Right, and the thing with it, though, is they had some bad characters.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he had
you
to
need
put
some.
Those people in there, right? You always have to have that, don't you?
Right. You always have a protagonist
Yes.
and an antagonist.
Right.
I have one in mind, if you remember, and mine was a real guy.
Yep.
And his name, and that's one thing I would do in the next book. His name was Don, and the good guy was Ron.
Yes.
So I would change one of them to Charlie or something so that they weren't so close together, because it's easy for somebody who's not familiar with the story to get confused. And when you do that, you try to keep the names far apart so that they're not easily confused.
So in a memoir, you can change names. You can do all that.
You have to change names.
Yes.
All the publishers, they all tell you cannot use anybody's real name. You have to change it, or else we'll
You're
be
liable.
sued.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. So you don't want to do that. But let me just do this again because I want to get this right. So my guest, as you've been hearing, is Joe Berardino, and the name of the book is Death in the Midnight Sky: Flying the Mighty Gunship in Combat, a memoir. I never heard of a gunship before. It's funny. Since my husband had flown B-17s, I didn't know what a gunship is. Why don't you describe what a gunship is?
A gunship is, in this case, there's lots of different, that term is used for lots of things, including lots of helicopters. I'm talking about Air Force gunships. In this case, it was an airplane called an AC-47. It was an old C-47, and they fixed 3 guns in the left, outside a left window, and the guns shot 6,000 rounds each a minute, and then the pilot would put the airplane in a left-hand pylon turn and fire the guns down at the enemy. There are now, today, there are 2 wings of these airplanes. A wing is maybe 25 airplanes. There's 2 wings of them in the Air Force now, and they use them in Afghanistan. Not those little airplanes like I had. Now they're C-130s. They're big, giant airplanes with 4 engines, and they have big guns. They have a 105-inch howitzer and 40 millimeters and 30. I'm not even sure I know all the guns anymore. It's just, but the gunships are still there. I'm going to put this book, I'm going to advertise in the base newspaper for both of those wings so that people who are flying a gunship now can see how it was when the old guys did it many years ago.
I love that. So how about, though, what was the comfort inside? Was it like a B-17 had no comfort either? Was it similar to that?
Well, in the back, there's no seats even. There's nothing.
Right.
It's just.
But it was
it's
small.
Aluminum floor.
Inside?
Aluminum floor. We had 21,000 rounds of ammunition. There's no comfort. It's not about comfort. It's about going up there and taking care of business. And there's not even any armor plating or anything. It's just that's the way it is. You just go fly against it and take your chances. And your husband went through the same thing. There's very little armor plating in a B-17. He was a pilot, right?
Yes.
And so there was very little armor plating in there, and it was just the military doesn't do comfort. It's not a concept.
No, but some planes, but these were really very tight, very small.
They're always that way because you're going to maximize how many bombs you can carry. So you're not going to put any padding in there on the seats, or you're not going to put a heater system or nothing. You take all the weight off the airplane you can because you want to carry lots of bombs and lots of bullets. The idea is to destroy the enemy, not to make comfort for the passengers. It's not a passenger airplane.
No, I understand, but and then how long would you fly at one time?
Normal missions were almost 8 hours.
I was going to say, he said the same thing, 8 hours.
Oh, they had bad ones in the B-17s, yeah. You read about it, plus the oil raids. You read about some of the missions that they flew in the Second World War, and they're amazing.
Yeah, he wrote that in his Air Force Cowboy book. And,
yeah, I know, I read it.
Yeah, and he talked about that, and he talked, of course, to me about it, too. But I think he wound up by getting let's see, what was it, in the stomach from it, because you can't move your bowels. I mean,
you can't do anything.
It's a terrible thing.
It's miserable flying, but you're always cold or you're hot and everything hurts and everything. It's not about comfort. It's about surviving and bringing death to the enemy. And
the difference is in World War II, he was a hero, but in the Vietnam War, you weren't such a hero. You were a hero, but they didn't treat you like a hero.
But the people don't know, and so but they have. I think they've more than made up for it since then. I think that they have come 180 degrees around now, right. And they treat all the veterans very well.
But how'd they make you feel when you came out? But did that affect you at all?
Not much,
No.
because when I came back, I flew to Gunship. I lived on base and flew to Gunship, so I didn't see a lot of civilians. And soon after that, I went to Michigan State University, and we had protests on campus. And actually, I went to the protests a couple of days because they stopped all the classes. Half the time I agree with the kids. I'm not sure why the heck I was there either. So maybe that's kind of strange thought.
No,
but
it isn't. I think that is true.
I didn't. You could never dislike the individual servicemen. I might not like the political process that put us in those things. Like there are times people now who say, "Why the hell are we in Afghanistan? What are we doing in Iraq?"
Exactly.
I don't understand the political process sometimes, and I can hate that thing.
But not the guys who are
the individual guy. He's doing his duty
on the line, right?
He thinks he's protecting the mothers and the children of America. He's not over there doing anything else.
So another question I had, because I don't remember in your book, did you have any women who you were working
in those
alongside?
days when we're not allowed in combat? So there were no women in our squadron or in anything we did.
Right. I didn't think I saw anything. Well,
now they are. As a matter of fact, there's a famous picture that goes around on the internet, a woman gunner on the AC-130s now. A real pretty girl.
No, that's interesting.
And actually, I was at the squadron. The squadron is at Hurlburt Field, Florida. And I went there and met a young woman who is a gunner. So, yeah, they're doing it, and they do a fine job, I understand.
Well, Joe, it was a wonderful interview. I always love having you come in. Everyone can get this book on Amazon.com. Please go and get it. You'll love it. And Joseph, he's very special. We want to make him. We won't make you a millionaire, but we want people to know who you are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I sincerely appreciate your attention, detail, and helping me. Thank you.
You're welcome.